So with me today, I have Matt Colboys from the board of directors in NeoDynamics. And we are very briefly going to touch upon a couple of issues, being a member of a board in a small cap company in Sweden, who have great visions and plans to enter the US market. Welcome to you, Matt.
Thanks, Klaus. Glad to be here.
Yeah, nice to see you. And first of all, Matt, I would like to address the question about the importance of diversity in a board with a company with a market cap of 111 million Swedish crowns. Could you please elaborate a little on that?
Sure, Klaus. It's interesting question, also very important one, because now is the time that so many early stage companies make mistakes because they have a kind of lack of multiple perspectives on the board. And I think that NeoDynamics has done a really good job of kind of mixing it up really well. And that was something that they were hoping to do last year when I joined the board, is really kind of get the U.S. experience and U.S. perspective, both from the financial and commercial side, as they approach the market in the United States. And as you know, we've got kind of a very broad base of skills on the board. We've got folks who come at it from an investment perspective. We got folks that come on that are representing investors, people who have a financial background, a legal background, a lot of commercial. I bring obviously the U.S. perspective. We also have the Chinese perspective, which is another marketplace that we're looking to get into. And that's not usually seen in small companies. Usually it's a kind of, it can be somewhat of a rubber stamp type of board, and that's clearly not what we have here. And that represents the interest of the investors, and that can hamper companies, especially at this stage where so many decisions can be crucial going forward.
Yeah, well, I fully agree. I find it very interesting that they're able to attract such experienced board members as you and the others you mentioned. How did you actually get in contact with NeoDynamics?
So Magnus Precht, who is running the U.S. operation, he and I go way back 20 plus years working together on a couple different ventures. And he called me in April of last year and was talking about NeoDynamics and how he thought it was a very interesting technology, and the company had a lot of promise, and that they were looking to bring somebody on from the U.S. that has experience in the U.S. marketplace. So my background is really primarily launching new companies and new products for the last 25 years. I was part of the early commercial team at Genentech in the 1980s, which was a fabulous experience. And since leaving there in '95, I've introduced several new products to the United States, and have kind of been involved in mergers and acquisitions and business development and corporate development, and currently I have a venture fund here in the United States that I'm a partner in, that we're building medical device companies here in the U.S. to bring to the U.S. markets.
What can you mention a little, or can you elaborate a little on what product launches you have succeeded with, Matt? Or being a team of course, it's always a team effort.
It is always a team, and I've been lucky. We've had some really great teams. Actually, in one of the first kind of launches that I really had overall management responsibility for, and it's always been kind of first products type of situation. And in this one, it was actually with Pharmacia Peptide Hormones in the United States. Magnus was the U.S. general manager, and a friend of mine that had gone to work for Pharmacia Peptides, a former Genentech colleague, asked me to come over and help launch the product in the United States. So that was genotropin. It was the first European entree into the U.S. as orphan drug protection had expired for Genentech and Lilly. So it really was the advent of a more competitive marketplace. So obviously we came in there as, in that situation, a company that had a lot of resources, being the European leader, but also coming into a very competitive market. And we very quickly became co-leaders in the space with Genentech within about the first year and a half of our launch. So that was a lot of fun, and also had a couple other launches into that same space, the growth hormone IGF space. Another interesting one was at a small company called Insmed, and when I came on as a consultant, it was a very niche product, to say the least, which there are some extremely successful companies operating in this fashion now in the United States. But we were kind of the first one where I remember sitting with all the worldwide leaders from a clinical and academic perspective and laying out the clinical data that we had for the product and the patient types. And I remember them saying, this is really interesting. This is a great product. There's 14 kids in the world that need this product. And so that was kind of an eye-opener. I'm thinking, jeepers, it's kind of hard to build a company around a product that has 14 patients as your total market. Well, in the first 6 months of therapy, we put 200 kids on. And so, again, a very successful launch. And it's really about, you're right, is the team. And what's so crucial is really the guys in the field, the men and women that are out there. They're the face of the organization, and it's very important to have the right people. And I have, through my multiple companies having launched products, I've had somewhat of a group of mercenaries that I used to carry around, and we'd reassemble, and it's very comforting to be able to put your head on the pillow every night knowing that you're going to be successful because these people never failed. And so it's the right mindset. It sounds trite, but it's kind of the hunter versus the farmer. And in sales and in life, the persistent man always wins, but they don't win. They don't win on our timeline. So when you're in that startup environment, you don't have the time for that persistent guy to just plod along and be successful in a matter of 2 years or whatever. You need people that hit the ground running. They think the right way. They understand as they enter into each hospital or each hospital system that it's actually like an organism, and understanding how that organism works and finding the levers that they need to pull to open doors and overcome obstacles. And that's a real key component, and as well as the coordination between sales and marketing. And a lot of companies get that wrong, right? There's always kind of this collision of who's more important. And that's why it's really important to build the team and have sales and marketing collaborating right from the start and working together to develop the message, the strategy, the tactics that are going to make you successful.
Yeah, interesting. And just a final question here, Matt. And now you join last year you joined the board of NeoDynamics. This is more like medtech. Where do you see the biggest challenges besides all the great stuff you just provided to the investors? Do you see any differences between pharma products and medtech companies in the approach they should choose in US?
It's an interesting dichotomy in that the medtech guys always looked at the therapeutic guys as not really being salespeople, because it is a different dynamic. You're giving your presentation, and your activities are not so measurable as they are in medtech, where you know whether you're making inroads or not, as to whether it's really based on, is the hospital buying your product or not. So I think there's a different level of, for the most part, when comparing the two sides, there's a different skill level, a different level of interaction. Especially with a new technology like this, the physicians are going to be highly reliant on the people to train them and train their teams and help them work through the early stages of using the product, and that's always difficult. Access has become so hard in the United States, and I'm sure it has in Europe as well. Gaining access to the key decision makers, specifically the clinicians, and hospital systems have really tightened up since the long time ago when I was last in the field, where you kind of walked around and did whatever you want. That's not the case anymore in these hospital systems. They're very tight. So that's part of it, is building the relationships to get in there. Also, the reimbursement's different in the United States, so we're going to have to make sure that we have the appropriate model to match the reimbursement so that we don't have misalignment of incentives with regards to the financial health of physicians and health systems versus ourselves. So this has great promise for patients, especially as we get into the axillary node area, where I think the pulse technology has tremendous amount of benefit. And as we progress into some of these other areas beyond breast cancer, where taking core needle biopsies is very difficult, or biopsying in general is very difficult. So I think we've got a really strong technology, and it's just going to important to kind of pre-market activities and really understand your market and the problems that your customers face, and make sure we address them properly.
With that said, Matt, thanks a lot. Great talk. Really interesting stuff you provided us with. Enjoy your day. Thanks a lot for participating, and look forward to see you again.
Thanks, Klaus. Maybe in the fall. Bye-bye.
Yeah, for sure.
Have a great week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.